Psycho Goreman, PG for short. Siblings Mimi and Luke unwittingly resurrect an ancient alien overlord. Using a magical amulet, they force the monster to obey their childish whims, and accidentally attract a rogues gallery of intergalactic assassins to small-town suburbia. Is Psycho Goreman the perfect combination of horror, sci-fi, and comedy, or do all those elements make for a hot mess? But before we do that, make sure that like button, guys, because liking these videos lets me know that you love them. And make sure you smash that notification bell, so it's any videos just like this one. Let's get to the review. First, let's talk about our main characters, Mimi, Luke, and Psycho Goreman. As I said in the synopsis, Mimi and Luke are siblings, brother and sister, but they're very opposites of each other. So Mimi is very like alpha and outgoing and like fierce, and then you have Luke who's more like introverted, shy, kind of goes along with whatever her sister does and kind of takes, the beating from her, gets walked all over, that kind of stuff. Now I like their relationship overall, and I think it's fun that they actually, play around with each other and feed into each other's imaginations. And you can totally see out throughout the movie that they deal with real problems that siblings would deal with, and even though they have a problem towards the end, it kind of gets easily resolved and kind of brings a big old message to the movie that even Psycho Goreman can relate to and appreciate, which is kind of cool given that he's a monster bent on killing everybody in the galaxy. As far as Psycho Goreman himself, I think it's very funny that we have this, alien overlord who is set to conquer the galaxy and defeat anybody in his way by killing them and torturing them and just, making them pay. And yet, he's under the control of these kids who make him honestly more human. I know that sounds kind of weird because he's a monster and he's an alien, so he's not human, but they kind of give him human elements to make him feel like one of them. And I feel like overall that's the message of the movie, somewhat to make him relatable to the kids, and obviously in that process make him feel relatable to everybody else. Even to himself, he feels like he's learned something new, and he can take that with him as he goes and spread that goodness across the galaxy as he always would. Obviously, you can tell from this movie that there's always some not cliche elements, but you already know from this movie that, even though the kids have him on control and he's really like hell-bent on getting out of their control, that, like I said, he finds out through this process that he can find some appreciation and, unquote, love for them. And so he kind of is like, hey, I'll still be on your side, even though, you may not control me all the time. You already kind of see that set the stage at the very beginning that that's what's going to happen. You know that he hates it now, but over time he's going to warm up to them and end up liking and appreciating them and basically, befriending them. You can kind of already see that from the beginning. So let's talk about some of the other characters in the movie. First off, with the parents, I did not care for the parents. Honestly, if we never saw the kids' parents, or if we briefly saw the kids' parents, I would have been better off. I had the same feeling when I watched The Babysitter and The Babysitter 2. I just didn't think they do anything for the movie. To me, they take away this whole thing about, the mom doing all the stuff and the husband being lazy and unappreciative and just in the way. I don't want any of that. I didn't need any of that. That didn't do anything for me in the movie. We can get over that. Take them out. We don't need them. That didn't, it'd been better off if they just, were parents that were rarely seen, that, had to find out about weird things that Psycho Goreman does, because obviously he's a monster and he can't be hiding all around all the time. So I just think that would have been better off versus having this like kind of side story message going on. As far as their friend Alistair, who gets turned into basically a version of meat, reminding me of a brain meatball from Aqua Teen Hunger Force with like tentacles. I don't really understand what that was all about. I'm guessing that was just to kind of showcase some of the effects that this movie could pull off. We also have like the Intergalactic Council with the Templars, the people who are against Psycho Goreman and his, band of misfits. And they just seem kind of a waste. I'm not gonna lie, they just seem kind of there. It was interesting to see kind of all the different costumes and like effects and personalities that they could bring to the table, but overall they were just kind of there. I think the only character that was really important was obviously Pandora, because she has the sole purpose of keeping up the Templar, supremacy and kind of making sure that she puts Psycho Goreman back where he belongs. But other than that, we don't really need a whole lot of all these characters that have been introduced in this movie. Same thing goes for Psycho Goreman's former, band of misfits that he had for himself. They were just kind of, they each kind of did something different, and they all had a different kind of semi-different personalities. We didn't get to see it too much shine that much, but overall it was kind of meh. That leads me to my next topic, which is a Power Ranger feel. That was mainly because of the costumes in this movie, and I think even some of the special effects that were used. This movie very much felt like a horror versioned Power Rangers episode. That makes any kind of sense. From just the way the mouths move in some of the costume pieces, like especially Pandora, who I don't know if maybe that was like dubbed when she talks. I don't know if that was actually her talking or just her mouth moving in like a dubbed version on top of that. But between that and the fighting and the effects, Not so much Psycho Goreman using like his horror, like the horror elements on the effects, but just like his powers in general. I just really thought that this was played out like Power Rangers. And not that that's a bad thing, but it just was like a very different kind of feel for a horror sci-fi movie that I would think is kind of being more mainstream. I also want to talk about Crazyball. Now, I understand that this movie kind of used this as in the beginning to kind of help lead into how they find Psycho Goreman, and then also kind of towards the end as a way to defeat Pandora, but I don't understand all the rules of Crazyball either. I feel like this movie should have had like a side, like intermediate, kind of like in the Dodgeball movie where they kind of explain how Dodgeball works. Kind of in the middle or like kind of in the point, like explain, this is Crazyball and this is how it's played, like all the rules laid out. So I kind of understand because from the gist that I got, it's almost like a Dodgeball type game. And it has like these kind of specific weird rules in between that if you have to do them just right in a different order, that's how you can win up your opponent and win. But either way, Mimi seems to understand because it's her game. Doesn't really matter in the end, but I just thought I want to talk about Crazyball, and maybe you can understand it better than I can if you've seen the movie, and let me know. But yeah, I won't be playing Crazyball anytime soon. Okay, now I left this one down the list because even though I kind of skipped ahead and talked about all of the stuff before I got to the story is a big part, and that's why I left it towards the end, because I think this movie overall really should just have focused on the kids finding Psycho Goreman. So they find the amulet releases Psycho Goreman, and because of that, that triggers Pandora and the council to come after him and try to put him back where he goes. That part I like. That works. The other part of this I feel like is Psycho Goreman's past with Pandora and Gygax and, you know, him as an overlord and the Templars, you know, plan to rule the galaxy, you know, any way possible. That's like a sub-story, you know, a historical story that kind of sets all this up. I think that's all you needed. I don't think we need, you know, Psycho Goreman fits in the town and what he does, and I don't think we need Psycho Goreman, you know, interacting with the parents and the parent sub-story and, you know, all this other googly gosh that sometimes they talk about with, you know, Psycho Goreman's henchmen, you know, turning on him, and you know, there's also all these kind of like sub things that go on. I'm just like, we don't need any of that. Don't need it at all. Including one part where Mimi goes to talk to Jesus on a cross and, you know, asks him his opinion about sunglasses. And he's, of course, like, oh, well, I already know what I want and I don't need you anymore because the real God is Psycho Goreman. I don't know what that was all about. Not needed, though. Maybe the director or team on this movie have something against religion. Not that it matters. You're, you know, entitled to whatever you want. But I just don't see how that fit into the movie at all. Don't need it. It doesn't belong. So in saying all that, this movie would have done just well with the main plot and maybe the subplot. And I think with that, the subplot could have been a really good idea for a prequel, or I wanted more of that. I wanted more of the story of Psycho Goreman on Gygax and the Templars. That was like a really good like story right there. I mean, that could have actually spent like that could make a whole separate movie. So I think maybe they could make a prequel to this movie. They could still call it Psycho Goreman. But, you know, I think since he's the Archduke of whatever he is, hell or something, I think they could totally make like a prequel where maybe it's like a Princess Bride type movie, since it's more of like a, you know, going for a comedic effect. They can make it, you know, the Psycho Goreman Bride or something. You know, just go with me on this, but I'm thinking that, you know, that way we could still keep the kids involved. It could be a prequel sequel, so it's mainly like just Psycho Goreman telling the kids a more in-depth history of what happens. And I know in the movie he tries to do that, and Mimi doesn't have the attention span to keep him going, but I think if he really wants to, they could do something like that. Or we could just have a full-blown prequel where we start there, and then that's how he gets captured and puts in here. But I think that'd be really cool to have that movie, because I feel like there's a lot more story to be told there, and it just seemed cool. So overall, I would give Psycho Goreman 3.5 out of 5 tube mans. I do feel like the movie, like I said at the very end of this, has a good story overall, and I feel like it has bits and pieces that could be elaborated on, but the parts that it elaborates on are just not needed, and it kind of gets in the way and muddles things, and it just kind of makes the movie kind of like uneven. So, as I said in my intro, does this make it feel like a hot mess? Yes and no. Is it still worth you watching? Absolutely. I think it's a very different take on horror sci-fi comedy. Very different than some of the stuff I've seen so far, like The Babysitter and some other, you know, satirical horror movies. But I think it's really fun, and I think it's worth your watch. If you've seen Psycho Goreman, let me know what you think about my review. What are your thoughts on the movie? And do you feel like Crazyball should be a game that we probably shouldn't play anymore? Let me know your thoughts below. And that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you want more videos like this one, make sure you smash that notification bell. And I'll see you guys next time on the MashUp.